With a year that has been like no other, individuals in our country have since succumbed to all sorts of debates, arguments, protests, misinformation, and more. With movements and protests such as Black Lives Matter, election result protests, and Black Trans Lives Matter protests, it has become clear that this year has divided our country more so than years past. While being able to take a course such as argument and advocacy, it has been so interesting to learn more about the understanding of persuasion, reasoning, presidency, religion, science, and so much more. The artifact that I'm going to hone in on is that of the Black Lives Matter protests and how the use of reasoning and persuasion has the ability for individuals to take a stand on matters they do or do not believe in. Following the death of George Floyd on May 25th, Black Lives Matter protests erupted all over the world, moving far beyond physical streets, but in cyberspace as well. Not only were there many in-person protests, social media platforms such as Twitter allowed for individuals to take a stand and facilitate conversations about race.
Black Lives Matter protests erupted across the world following the death of George Floyd on May 25th, from London and cities across Britain to Paris, Berlin, Tokyo, Sydney and Auckland. The movement went far beyond the streets. It dominated cyberspace too. The US-based Pew Research Center has tracked the Twitter activity of lawmakers for the past 2 years in Britain, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. George Floyd's death and the Black Lives Matter protests drove online conversations around race.
According to the Pew Research Center, Kat Delvin found that only 4% of Twitter users were discussing or using the hashtag Black Lives Matter. However, after the killings of individuals such as George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, and so many other lost lives, these conversations and use of hashtags leaped to 50%. Following such conversations, legislators began to use their own platforms to express concerns regarding non-peaceful protests and large gatherings among the coronavirus pandemic. Understanding how individuals were able to rightfully and peacefully protest to further emphasize beliefs surrounding police reformatory and social and racial equality can be better understood through tools developed throughout this course, such as the power of rhetorical persuasion through logos, pathos, and egos, and understanding the importance of reasoning when arguing for a social cause. Reasoning can be defined as a process of moving from known information to conclusion about what is unknown. With accurate reasoning, we're more likely to reach the truth. In terms of my artifact, it makes most sense to tailor it towards misinformation and lack of information. Pertaining to the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of information resided on social media, leaving room for unwarranted opinions or incorrect information and data. Because of any misinformation or lack thereof, it can threaten public debate by giving us no grounds to reason from. It's difficult to always know what is accurate when it comes to information being spread around the movement. As we've learned in this course, each individual person has their own idea of how to protest. However, no matter the method chosen, the modes of protest stay the same, meaning we must appeal to pathos, ethos, and logos. Logos doesn't necessarily mean logic, but understanding of how to persuade through argument, reaching for reasoned and satisfied justification. Ethos aids us to determine how credible you are perceived to be as a speaker, and pathos is appealing to emotion. It cannot be determined which rhetorical appeal dominates, but all three must work together with one another in order to fully and justly create a reasonable argument. In reference to the artifact chosen surrounding the protests of Black Lives Matter, there cannot be one instance of an individual speaker, yet the ability of all individuals to work as one to persuade politicians to make change. In recent months, changes have been implemented, such as the Breonna Taylor law, banning no-knock warrants in states such as Kentucky and Virginia, and recently introduced to the Senate. Furthermore, individuals in other states have had opportunities to give persuasive speeches to others in their community. For example, Police Chief Donald Anderson of Darien, Connecticut, came to speak to members of his community regarding his stand among all of the protests. As a police chief, Anderson held great credibility and authority, demonstrating ethos within his community, stating, "I've been the chief of police here for 9 months, but I've been working here for the police department for almost 37 years, explaining that many in the crowd knew him personally. Furthermore, Anderson appealed to pathos by referencing Bible verse Mark 12:31, "You should love your neighbor as yourself." By demanding excellence from all the other officers within the force, he encouraged members of the community that the public deserves nothing less than complete equality, no matter faith, creed, or color. Finally, Anderson utilized logos in offering gratitude for those who participated in peaceful and safe protests, emphasizing the importance of argument and assembly. In a year as bizarre and different like any other years in our past, it is clear that the community and country even have had the opportunity to come together as one to fight for social injustice. Without having taken this course, I would not have understood the importance of using just rationalization and argument techniques to argue those with differing opinions. Without having one particular debate or artifact, there are copious amounts of instances in which we are able to demonstrate and further understand the imminent importance of using reasoning and persuasion to make a difference and to maintain a solid argument.